So what I'm going to talk about now is I'm going to talk about studying for the course. So when you're studying for an online course, you're really kind of in some ways much more self-motivated and much more self-driven. And you have to be because you're not coming to see me once or twice a week for 4 hours a week. Instead, you're actually going to be required to do a lot of this kind of work on your own. And so consequently, discipline is very much key for studying for the course. When we talk about workload, you have to realize that this is a math course. And the general way of thinking about a math course is that every week, for every 1 hour that you're in class, you're expected to do 2 hours of outside homework or 2 hours of outside work. And so consequently, what that means is that we're looking at between 8 and 12 hours of study per week. And this is, by the way, this is to pass. Okay. If you're looking to do better, you might have to work a little bit more. For some of you, you might have to work a little bit less. But inevitably, what we're saying is essentially you're going to have about 8 to 12 hours of work a week, okay? That is just the expectations of the course. And that's just the way it is. And that's the way that math courses actually operate, okay? What sorts of things do we expect you to do? Well, one, you've got readings. So you're going to go in, you're going to do the readings. You've also got videos that you're expected to watch that go along with the readings. Your practice assignments, going in and doing your practice assignments, graded discussion boards, and then reviewing for exams and quizzes. So all of that's what's expected inside of those 8 to 12 hours per week. Some of you may think to yourself, you know what, I can do all the assignments, particularly like Module 1. You'll say, you know what, it only took me like 3 or 4 hours to do all the practice assignments for Module 1. Boom, done, right? Well, that might work for Module 1, but it gets a lot harder, a lot faster. Okay, and by the time you're into Module 4, Module 5, Module 6, Module 7, you want to make sure that you've gone in and you've scheduled the time in because it does get more difficult. Okay, and at some point in time, you're just going to need some time to digest material. I tell a lot of these things to my students about the difference between reading for math and reading for another course. And reading for math, in 1 week, we might get, 10 pages of reading. 10. Okay. When I was an English major, because I have a degree in English, what I used to get is I would get 400 or 500 pages of reading. Which one took longer? I'm going to tell you honestly that I thought that the math took longer because every page was like diving into a new world. It was dense. It required me to think. I had to go in and find definitions for words that I didn't know or didn't understand. There were technical definitions that I needed to know. And it was always harkening back to other pieces of information. So you need to spend some time digesting the course. Expect that you're going to spend that time. So I highly recommend that you think to yourself, 8 to 12 hours a week. Now, that means that discipline is key. You don't have to kind of spread it out throughout the entire week, but I would recommend it. I think working an hour or two most days of the week is probably optimal. It's the best way to kind of keep everything fresh, to kind of allow yourself to think, allow yourself to digest. It's like learning a language or learning how to play the guitar or something. If you play a little bit every day, half an hour a day, you study your language half an hour a day, it's a lot better than doing 4 hours of practice all in one day. Now, sometimes all you can do is 4 hours on one day. What are you going to do, right? If that's the case, if you're going to be doing all your work on the weekends, nothing wrong with that. I understand people have got things to do. Start as soon as possible. Start on Friday night. See if you can start maybe even on Thursday night. Do a little bit. And then throughout the weekend, make sure that you are spending time with the material, that you're going through the discussion boards, that you're asking questions, right? Don't try and do it all on Monday night. Really bad idea, okay? Because it turns out that if you're trying to do everything in one sitting, it's going to take you longer overall. That's just the nature of how these things work. It's like if I want to learn something that requires me to kind of digest the material, then it's better for me to do a little bit at a time, and it's going to be more optimal. It's going to be faster for me to do a little bit at a time. But if you have to do it all on the weekend, just make sure that you allow yourself the time to do that, okay? Don't try and do it all on Monday night, okay? Now, the other thing is don't try and pass the course at the last minute. This is a marathon, 16 weeks, okay? Or if we're doing an intersession course or summer course, then it is a little bit more of a sprint. But you don't want to get behind. You don't want to get behind. Try not to have any late assignments. You'll be getting late passes. You'll be getting, there's only, 10% for each day that you're late on an assignment. But the truth is, you don't want to be late. And the reason why is because there's just new information coming. There's new material coming. It comes pretty much every single week. And so consequently, just keep plugging away. It's all about pacing yourself. Now, the best thing that I think you can do, okay, and this is something that seems to be missing a little bit inside of online courses, is to keep a notebook. Essentially, you're going to treat this like you're actually taking a course. If you were taking a math course at college, and you were coming into my classroom, right, you'd have a notebook, you'd have notes, I'd be talking, or we'd be working on assignments, right, and you'd be taking notes about what it is that we're doing, okay? So you would be keeping a notebook. This is actually really important, okay? What you want to keep in that notebook is you want to keep your key terms, key concepts, right? Kind of understanding the things that are actually important, some notes about those things that help you understand them, methods for finding statistics and constructing mathematical objects, not just formulas, but sometimes there's like entire processes, right? You want to put those in your notebooks. You don't want to like go out and look for them later on, all right? Put them in your notes. Practice assignments, all right? We'll talk a little bit about those and how you should actually keep those in your notebook. Responses to your graded discussion boards, because that's another piece of information that you've done in the course. You should use it to study, right? And work on exam reviews and written assignments. All of this study stuff you want to kind of think about, like when it comes to study for my exam, okay, or when it comes to review for my exam, instead of going back in and having to go through every single one of the assignments, right? Instead, it would make a lot more sense if what I did was I kept a notebook so that I would have a synopsis and a summary. Right? You don't want to go out and reinvent the wheel whenever you're going in and reviewing for an exam. Now, what about practice assignments? These are actually really crucial. There's not a huge number of questions. It's not like your algebra course or even like a calculus course where it's like, hey, 50 problems on this particular concept. No, instead, you might get 5 or 10, right? Because at a certain point, we don't want to give you kind of the idea that this is the kind of stuff that gets memorized, because it's not. All right. Instead, these are concepts that need to be digested, that need to be understood. There's a lot of critical thinking involved and a lot of reading. So the first thing you want to do is begin early. Leave time to ask questions, find help, and think, right? I wouldn't do them on Monday night. Bad idea. Okay. Write out the questions and your work on the questions in your notebook. Writing mathematically is crucial for doing well in mathematics, and your tests will be written and you'll be required to show work. So make sure you're doing that in the practice assignment. Practice what you'll have to do on the exam. Makes sense, right? Okay. If you're unable to complete a problem after spending time working on it and thinking about it, post to the discussion board. Okay. That, by the way, doesn't mean I'm going to head to the discussion board if I've looked at it and I'm like, I don't get it immediately. You want to spend some time on these things. All right. If you're using me to offload all of your cognitive work, you're not going to learn what you need to learn. All right. I'm here to kind of point you in the right directions, to kind of give you input. I've already set everything up so that you get the base background material before you even start, okay? What you're going to use me for is to help refine your thinking, but if you haven't done any thinking beforehand, there's no refinement of that thinking, okay? Spend at least 15 minutes up on a problem before giving up, okay? Here's the thing. We get used to algebra, other math questions where it's like you've got 2 minutes or 1 minute per question, and you expect to be done in 1 or 2 minutes. That's not the case here. One of my exams might be an hour and a half long and have 10 questions. So what does that mean I expect? Right? That means I expect 9 or 10 minutes per question sometimes. Okay? For some questions, it's going to take you a little while. It's okay. Right? They have lots of critical thinking that go along with them. You might go like, oh, what's the process for me working through this thing? What is it asking? What is it that it wants me to do? When I go in and I give you a demonstration of like how to do a particular problem, you might find it takes me 10 to 15 minutes to do the problem. That's because that's how long it takes, right? So make sure that you're spending some time on those practice assignments, right? And you're thinking through them. Some of them, quick, easy peasy, no problems. You're like, I understand. Others, it's going to be, what is that asking? Where have I read that before? What does it say inside of my notes? What does it say on the video? How might I go about approaching that? Spend some time thinking. Spend some time working, all right? And, that's actually for the next section. You know what? I should actually state that again. Double. College math exams are not to be underestimated. That's true. Okay, let's talk about help discussion boards then. Help discussion boards I think are hugely important and hugely beneficial, and I just don't get enough people asking questions, or I don't think enough people like actually kind of check them, right? What I think often ends up happening is that like 75% of the students do all the math on Monday, and so inevitably they're like, he's not going to answer the discussion board before I need to turn it in anyways, which I get. But if you're one of those people who is actually doing what I tell you to do and is going in and starting a little bit early, discussion boards can be hugely important. They're also really handy for studying for exams and to keep a collection of our collected knowledge as a course. Okay? So, first, start your assignments early enough so that you can use the help discussion boards. Second, if you're working on an assignment, check the discussion boards to see if someone has asked a similar question. So if we really get this up and running, we get ramped up, and I'm checking it, and I'm giving you answers, and it's all cool, and we're like, having a good time. What you'll notice is that people will ask questions, and you'll be able to go in, and much like if you were searching on Google, you could go in and you could be like, oh, I wonder if anybody's asked about this question already. I've spent some time working on it, right? Actually working on the assignment. Now I have a question about it because I don't understand this piece. I wonder if anybody's asked. You could add to the thread. You could go in and answer somebody else's question. I give extra credit for that, right? It's one way to like actually improving your score. Okay. Make sure that you give the number. So this is how you should actually go in and set these up. It's also included in every one of the help discussion boards. Make sure that you get the number and section for the question. Copy and paste a copy of the question. I use the snipping tool, right? And then I just upload a picture of it and what you have already done. The reason why you say what it is that you've already done is sometimes it's a very small change, right? That is only a tiny piece of what you don't understand. And then what you want to do is you want to say, okay, I did this and this and this. And then that way I can go, oh, here's your problem. Okay. Or one of your classmates can go, here's your problem. You just need to do blah, X, right? And that'll end up giving you the right answer. You learn more that way than having me spend 10 or 15 minutes for all you need is a 30-second patch, right? Okay. It's better for you. It's better for me. It's better for everybody, right? Because it actually kind of like works through the kind of problems of the course. Okay. Now studying for exams. Start studying for the unit exam or the final exam the first day of the unit or the course. That's one of the reasons why you're going to keep that notebook. But it's also one of the reasons why you want to think 8 to 12 hours a week, because you can actually go in and review the things that you've done inside of the unit, right? And you can actually think about what it is that you've already done and spend that extra time doing that, right? The more time that you spend during the week actually studying for these exams and studying for the course, the less time you have to actually spend studying for the exam. Okay? Time spent now will benefit you greatly tomorrow. Use your notebook, right, as a collection of, of your studies. All right. And exam reviews now are meant to give you an idea of the kinds of questions that will be on the exam. They're not comprehensive. They're not like every question. Like if you just memorize how to do all these questions, then you'll do great on the exam because you'll know how to do every question that I could possibly ask on the exam. That's not true. That's not how this works. Instead, they'll give you an idea of how I kind of ask my questions on the exam, okay? The kinds of concepts that I think are important, right? But the actual topics for the exam, the things that you need to know, are covered in the exam information inside of each one of those exam modules, okay? So make sure that you go through and you understand all of those things, right, first before going in and doing the exam review, okay? All right. And that covers it. That's studying for this course. Like I said, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you go in and you spend enough time, preparing for and doing the work of the course, that you're disciplined in terms of doing the work of the course. Don't forget that you have one, like some people do. It's weird. I'm like, hey, I keep writing. Who's this guy who keeps asking me, like, have you done your work already? Right? So be disciplined, and that'll actually serve you best inside of doing this course.